At 88, Jack Nicholson reveals 6 actors he hated the most. For more than half a century, Jack Nicholson was Hollywood's most unpredictable force. The grin, the madness, the fearlessness. But behind that legendary smile lived a man who never forgot betrayal. A man who believed respect on a film set was sacred. Now, at 88 years old, Jack Nicholson has finally let the truth surface, revealing the 6 actors who crossed lines he could never forgive. These aren't tabloid grudges. These are scars carved into a legend. And if you think you know Jack Nicholson, stay with me, because the real story begins where the cameras stopped rolling. Marlon Brando, When a Hero Falls. For Jack Nicholson, acting was never just a job. It was a vow. Long before fame, before the grin became a trademark, before Hollywood learned to fear and admire him, Jack was a young man sitting in dark theaters, studying one face over and over again. Marlon Brando. Brando wasn't just an actor to Jack. He was proof that acting could be dangerous. Alive. Uncontrolled. That truth didn't come from perfection, it came from risk. Jack memorized Brando's performances the way some people memorize scripture. He defended him when critics turned. He shaped his instincts around the fire Brando once carried. To Jack, Brando wasn't a peer. He was a North Star. So when fate finally put them together in 1976, on the windswept plains of the Missouri Breaks, Jack arrived with reverence in his bones. This was supposed to be the moment where the student met the master, where myth became memory. But the dream didn't crack. It collapsed. From the very first days on set, Jack felt something was wrong. He came prepared, grounded, hungry to build something real. Brando arrived drifting, distracted, detached, as if the work itself were beneath him. Lines weren't memorized. Cue cards were taped to furniture, doorways, even people. Scenes stopped being collaboration and turned into containment. To outsiders, it looked eccentric. To Jack, it felt like betrayal. Then came the accents, appearing and disappearing without reason. The costumes, bonnets, dresses, distractions masquerading as creativity. Brando wasn't pushing boundaries. He was avoiding effort. And Jack felt the weight of that avoidance land squarely on his shoulders. Every scene became damage control. Every take, a negotiation with indifference. Jack tried to rationalize it. He wanted to believe the genius was still there, buried under the chaos. But the truth settled slowly and painfully. The man he worshipped no longer respected the craft they shared. And for Jack Nicholson, disrespect was unforgivable. Weeks turned into months. The tension thickened. The admiration drained out of him, replaced by a quiet grief no one talked about. When the film finally released and failed, it wasn't the box office that hurt most. It was the realization that a hero had fallen, not in scandal, but in apathy. Years later, Jack would say something that sounded harsh, but came from heartbreak. Genius doesn't excuse laziness. A lazy genius is just a fancy word for fraud. He never worked with Brando again. Jack still honored Brando's early brilliance, still acknowledged the impact. But trust, once broken, never returned. The scar remained, shaping how Jack approached every collaboration that followed. Because that experience taught him a brutal lesson. Sometimes the people who inspire us the most are the ones who wound us deepest. And sometimes, losing your hero is the price of becoming your own. Shelley Duval, When Fear Breaks the Rhythm. After Marlon Brando shattered Jack Nicholson's faith in his heroes, Jack walked onto his next set carrying a quiet hope. Not for greatness, but for stability. The Shining wasn't supposed to be a battlefield. It was supposed to be controlled, focused, precise. Instead, it became a psychological storm. Stanley Kubrick's reputation for perfection preceded him, but nothing prepared the cast for what followed. Days blurred into weeks. Takes multiplied into the dozens, then the hundreds. The goal wasn't performance, it was erosion. Kubrick believed truth emerged only after resistance collapsed. Jack Nicholson could survive that kind of pressure. Chaos was familiar territory. Intensity was fuel. But Shelley Duval was different. From the beginning, Jack sensed it. She arrived fragile, nervous, already vibrating under the weight of expectation. And as the days dragged on, that fragility deepened. Kubrick pushed harder. The set became colder. The isolation more complete. Jack needed rhythm. He needed a partner who could meet him beat for beat. Someone who could leap into the madness with him and land on the same emotional ground. But Shelley couldn't always get there. Some days she was extraordinary. Trembling. Achingly human. Other days she looked like she was barely holding herself together. Her timing slipped. Her energy faded. Scenes unraveled mid-performance. Jack later described it like trying to dance with someone hearing a different song. The steps didn't match. The cues missed each other. And suddenly he felt alone inside a two-person scene. His frustration wasn't born from ego. It came from exhaustion. Acting, to Jack, was a pact. You fall together or not at all. But Shelley was fighting something he couldn't see. Fear layered on fear, pressure stacked on pressure. And without realizing it, Jack began carrying not only his role, but the weight of her survival. Sympathy slowly curdled into irritation. Not because he lacked compassion, but because the film felt like it was slipping away, frame by frame. Years later, distance brought clarity. Jack admitted what he couldn't see at the time. Shelley wasn't failing him. Kubrick was failing her. What he once saw as unpredictability was trauma. What frustrated him was someone being pushed beyond human limits in the name of art. The shaking hands, the hollow eyes, the emotional collapse, none of it was weakness. It was endurance. The Shining became a masterpiece. One of the greatest horror performances ever captured. But it was forged through suffering that should never have been demanded. For Jack Nicholson, the film left behind a complicated scar. Not loud, not angry, but permanent. It taught him something painful. Sometimes the person beside you isn't your obstacle, they're your warning. And sometimes brilliance comes at a cost that no performance can justify. When the camera stopped rolling, Jack walked away wiser, quieter, and more cautious. Because from that point on, he understood something deeply unsettling. Talent alone doesn't make a partnership work. Safety does. And once fear replaces trust, even greatness leaves a residue that never fully fades. Tom Cruise, perfection without danger. After surviving chaos and fragility, Jack Nicholson thought he knew every kind of difficult partner Hollywood could offer. He was wrong. Because Tom Cruise didn't arrive with disorder. He arrived with control. When Jack stepped onto the set of A Few Good Men in 1992, he encountered a new breed of actor, fast, polished, relentlessly prepared. Cruise was everything the next generation celebrated. Disciplined, precise, almost surgically focused. Jack respected the work ethic immediately. But something felt off. For Nicholson, acting wasn't supposed to feel safe. A great scene should breathe, crack, threaten to explode at any moment. It should scare the actors a little, because fear meant truth was close. Cruise, however, seemed immune to that danger. From the first table read, every movement was calibrated. Every pause pre-selected. Every emotion already locked into place. It wasn't bad acting. It was flawless acting. And that, to Jack, was the problem. When Nicholson looked into Cruise's eyes, he didn't see uncertainty. He saw machinery, calculations, a system running perfectly behind the performance. Jack didn't want perfection, he wanted surprise. He wanted the thrill of not knowing what would happen next. Working with Cruise felt like throwing fire at steel. The flame burned bright, but nothing bent. The tension peaked during the courtroom scenes, the ones audiences would later call iconic. On screen, it looked like a clash of titans. Electricity, power, pure cinema. Behind the scenes, Jack was pushing far beyond the script. He raised his voice, sharpened his energy, leaned into unpredictability, not for effect, but as an invitation. A challenge. He wanted Cruise to lose control just once. But Cruise never cracked. Each response was pristine, controlled, immovable, like a studio recording played at perfect volume. And for Jack, who lived for the chaos of live performance, it felt suffocating. This wasn't personal. It was philosophical. Cruise believed preparation created greatness. Nicholson believed danger did. By the end of production, respect remained, but connection did not. They had delivered something audiences would remember forever, but they had never truly met each other in the creative space Jack cherished. Once filming wrapped, Jack was polite, even warm, but privately, he made a decision he rarely voiced aloud. He would never work with Tom Cruise again. Not because Cruise lacked talent, but because something essential was missing. The spark. There's the willingness to fall apart in front of the camera. Where Cruise chased perfection, Jack chased truth. And in Jack Nicholson's world, truth without danger was just another kind of illusion. Faye Dunaway, when a dream is sabotaged. By the time Jack Nicholson faced Faye Dunaway again, the stakes were no longer just artistic. They were personal. This wasn't another role. This was The Two Jakes, a sequel to Chinatown, one of the most defining films of Jack's life. A story he had carried for years. A legacy he felt responsible to protect. And this time, Jack wasn't just acting. He was directing, writing, guarding a dream. Reuniting with Dunaway felt, at first, like fate completing a circle. Their chemistry in Chinatown had been electric, effortless, dangerous, unforgettable. Jack believed that magic would return, that history would carry them forward. It didn't. From the first days on set, something had changed. Dunaway arrived late, questioned every line, resisted every direction. These weren't creative debates, they were power struggles. Conversations turned into confrontations. Momentum dissolved into friction. Jack tried to hold the vision together. He balanced his roles, managed the pressure, and pushed forward with the quiet determination that had carried him through decades of Hollywood chaos. But this was different. This film wasn't just another project. It was his chance to prove himself, not as a legend in front of the camera, but as a storyteller behind it. Every challenge from Dunaway felt like an attack on the foundation he was trying to build. For years, Jack had survived difficult personalities. He had outlasted egos, tantrums, and chaos. But this time, the resistance came from someone he trusted. And eventually, something inside him broke. In one heated moment, words escaped his mouth that carried more weight than anger ever could. This isn't collaboration. It's sabotage. The word lingered long after the argument ended. Sabotage meant intention. It meant the failure wasn't accidental. It meant the dream he had protected was being torn apart from within. Production staggered forward, but the damage was done. Jack's confidence eroded. His energy drained. Every day felt like trying to rebuild a collapsing structure while someone pulled bricks from the base. When The Two Jakes finally released, the response was devastatingly quiet. Critics were lukewarm. Audiences confused. The box office underwhelming. The failure cut deeper than any review ever could. Because Jack knew what the film could have been. In the aftermath, Nicholson made a decision that shocked many and broke something in himself. He stepped away from directing, not out of fear, but out of grief. The wound ran too deep. Leaving the director's chair wasn't a career move. It was surrender. He had poured heart, memory, and ambition into that film, and watched it fracture under conflict he couldn't control. The loss wasn't just professional. It was existential. Some dreams don't die loudly. They fade in silence. And for Jack Nicholson, The Two Jakes marked the moment he accepted a brutal truth. Even the strongest vision cannot survive the wrong partnership. He moved forward carrying yet another scar. One shaped not by chaos or disappointment, but by the slow, painful realization that some battles cost more than their worth. Sean Penn, When Freedom is Taken Away. After the quiet devastation of The Two Jakes, Jack Nicholson carried wounds he didn't fully name. The loss of a dream as a director lingered, but something deeper had shifted. He was more cautious now, more protective of the one thing he still believed in completely, his freedom as an actor. So when Jack agreed to work on The Pledge in 2001, he hoped for renewal, a reset, the chance to reconnect with the instinctive fire that had defined him for decades. And at first, Sean Penn seemed like the right partner. Penn was intelligent, intense, an actor who understood the interior life of a character. Jack believed they might speak the same creative language. They didn't. Penn approached directing with surgical control. Every movement mapped. Every pause dictated. every emotional beat locked into a predetermined shape. There was no room to wander, no space to discover, no oxygen in the frame. For some actors, that structure might have felt reassuring. For Jack Nicholson, it felt like confinement. Acting, to Jack, was an act of exploration. You step into a scene without knowing exactly where it will take you. You follow impulse. You trust that truth emerges in motion, not instruction. Under Penn, motion stopped. Jack later summed up the experience with a line that revealed everything. "What's the point of hiring Jack Nicholson if you want a puppet?" It wasn't arrogance. It was grief. He wasn't being asked to create, he was being asked to obey. The spontaneity that once electrified his performances was squeezed into a narrow corridor of approval. Scene after scene, he delivered exactly what Penn wanted. But it wasn't what Jack believed the character deserved. The tension never exploded. It simmered. Day after day, the quiet pressure drained him. It felt like running with weights strapped to his instincts. Movement without momentum, effort without freedom. Critics praised the film. Nicholson's performance was admired. But inside he felt hollow. Because something essential had been taken from him. Sean Penn wasn't cruel. He wasn't malicious. He believed control produced realism. That precision revealed truth. But Jack believed the opposite. Truth needed air. And when the air was gone, the soul of the performance died with it. When filming ended, Jack made another silent vow. He would never work with Sean Penn again. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. After decades of fighting for authenticity, he had learned something painful. There are cages that look like collaboration. And freedom, once taken, is rarely returned. He walked away from the pledge carrying a scar unlike the others. No betrayal. No chaos. Just the quiet realization that being shaped too tightly can erase the very thing that makes an artist alive. And as Jack moved forward, one final confrontation awaited him, not with a director, not with a dream, but with the future of Hollywood itself. Leonardo DiCaprio, when the future no longer feels dangerous. By the time Jack Nicholson stepped onto the set of The Departed in 2006, he was no longer fighting individuals. He was confronting time itself. The scars were already there, from idols who disappointed him, partners who fractured under pressure, collaborators who chased control over chaos. Jack carried all of it into what would become one of his final great performances. Leonardo DiCaprio didn't arrive as an enemy. He arrived as the future. Brilliant. Obsessively prepared. DiCaprio represented a new Hollywood, one shaped by research, psychology, and precision. Every gesture was intentional. Every breath rehearsed. Nothing was left to chance. Jack respected the discipline. He always had. But something felt unfamiliar. For Nicholson, preparation was only the skeleton. The soul of a scene came from risk, from letting a moment unravel in ways no one planned. Acting was an unpredictable dance, not an architectural blueprint. Watching DiCaprio work felt like watching a master builder raise walls so solid that nothing spontaneous could break through. The performance was intelligent, layered, and safe. Too safe. The difference between them became undeniable during one tense exchange. Jack, hungry for truth, made a choice that belonged to another era. Without warning, he pulled out a real gun. No rehearsal. No warning. DiCaprio's fear was real. Martin Scorsese kept the cameras rolling. The moment crackled with authenticity. Jack felt alive. Vindicated. This was acting as he understood it. Danger, impulse, electricity. But DiCaprio didn't feel the same. To him, the moment wasn't artistic bravery. It was a breach of trust. A violation of the safe, collaborative space he believed filmmaking required. His craft depended on emotional control, not ambush. On structure, not chaos. In that instant, the distance between them widened. There was no hostility. Only divergence. Jack admired DiCaprio deeply, calling him one of the hardest working actors he had ever met. But admiration wasn't enough. Connection requires shared philosophy, and there's no longer aligned. Nicholson later summed it up with a line that echoed like a farewell. He's done his homework, but there's no danger. For Jack Nicholson, danger was the point. It was the spark that made cinema feel alive. The thing that separated competence from legend. The Departed became a triumph. Best Picture, iconic performances, a defining moment for everyone involved. But for Jack, the victory carried a quiet bitterness. Because success didn't erase the feeling that something essential had changed. Hollywood had evolved. The wildness he loved was being replaced by control. Instinct overshadowed by preparation. Risk traded for reliability. And Jack wasn't sure there was room for him anymore. After filming ended, he spoke respectfully of DiCaprio. Publicly gracious. Privately honest. He knew he wouldn't work with him again, not out of anger or disappointment, but acceptance. Two paths had diverged. One built on improvisation and danger. The other on precision and protection. As Jack Nicholson stepped away from the screen, he carried one final truth with him. Even in triumph, the wrong creative partnership can leave an echo of emptiness. And perhaps that was his legacy. He never chased comfort. He never softened his standards. He protected the soul of acting even when it cost him collaborators, dreams, and relevance in a changing world. In an industry now dominated by formulas and safety, Jack Nicholson stood as one of the last guardians of danger. And if you've ever watched him and felt that spark, that unpredictable, electric truth, you've seen the code he lived by. A code Hollywood may never see again. 6 actors. 6 scars. Not born from hate, but from caring too deeply. Jack Nicholson was never angry because things went wrong. He was wounded because the work mattered. In a world that now rewards safety, formulas, and perfection, he chose danger. He chose truth, even when it cost him everything. So here's the real question. Was Jack Nicholson too difficult? Or was he one of the last artists brave enough to risk failing in public? If you believe acting should feel alive, unpredictable, and real, leave a comment. Subscribe for stories Hollywood never wanted told. Because legends don't fade quietly. They echo.